Are you struggling to implement authentication in ASP.NET Core? In this video, I'll show you how to set up user authentication using ASP.NET Core Identity, step by step. By the end, you'll be able to register, log in, and log out users in your ASP.NET Core web application. Let's get started. First, let's set up ASP.NET Core Identity. Open Visual Studio and create a new ASP.NET Core web app model view controller. Now, install Identity using NuGet Package Manager. Now, update appsettings.json to configure the connection string. Next, register identity services in program.cs. This sets up identity with user roles and tokens. Next, we need to set up the database to store user information. Inside the data folder, open ApplicationDB context.cs and make sure it inherits from IdentityDB context instead of DB context. Finally, run the migration commands to apply these changes to the database. Now, let's implement user registration. First, create a model to capture user input during registration. Now, let's add account controller.cs. Add the register action inside account controller.cs. Now, let's implement the user registration logic. In AccountController.cs, we'll create a post method to handle form submissions. First, we check if the form input is valid using modelState.isValid. If the input is invalid, we simply return the form with error messages. Next, we create a new identity user object, assigning the provided username and email. We then use _user_manager to create async user model password to create the user in the database. If registration is successful, we log the user in automatically using _sign_in_manager to sign in async and redirect them to the home page. If there's an error, like an email already in use or a weak password, we loop through the errors and display them on the form. And that's it. Our users can now register and get signed in immediately after. First, we create a login view model to capture the user's credentials, including a username and password. Now, let's move to the AccountController.cs and create the login post method to process user login attempts. We first check if the form input is valid using modelState.isValid. If the input is invalid, we return the form with validation messages. If the credentials are correct, the user is redirected to the home page. Otherwise, we display an error message. If the credentials are correct, the user is redirected to the home page. Otherwise, we display an error message. Next, let's implement login functionality. First, create a view for capturing login details. Now let's test this. I'll enter valid credentials, click login, and boom, we're successfully signed in. That's how you implement login functionality in ASP.NET Core Identity. Next, we'll look at how to log out users securely.